Greetings from Ann Arbor, Michigan, a great state and a great place of the great USA. Welcome to our podcast series, and I am promising you that this series is going to be very enlightening, very inspirational, a lot of fun, and something that will really, I think, help you as you walk your path to holiness. This series is going to have a lot of different things that you probably have questions about, but maybe had the opportunity to ask, especially about religious life. Like, what do they do all day? Who are they? Where do they come from? What's it like when a young woman enters religious life? So stay tuned as we will discuss where sisters come from today. Welcome back to Go LE Digital and our series, which is The Truth Shall Set You Free. I am Sister Joseph Andrew Bogdanowitz, and today it is my pleasure to have with us Sister Mary Aquinas Chang. Sister, welcome.
Good morning.
Will you begin, Sister, by telling us a little bit about your family upbringing and where you come from and who you are?
I'm originally from Texas. My parents immigrated.
Texas is pretty big, so where?
Houston.
Okay.
Houston, Texas. Actually, I grew up in Galveston.
Oh.
But my family lives in Houston now. My parents are originally from the Philippines.
Wonderful.
My father's pure Chinese, but he grew up and was born in the Philippines.
Wow.
And so I graduated from the University of Texas with a degree in business. And after that, I worked as a consultant for one of the big 5 accounting firms. And I did that for several years, traveling and that sort of thing. And then when I wanted to stop traveling, I worked for a hospital in Houston.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you said you got a degree in business.
Yes, sister.
So that left the options wide open for you to go into. That's a good degree for you parents to know and for you young people to know that that is so versatile, which of course it certainly is. Even if you couple it with music or art or something, it's always prudent to use the business end of it as well. Now, Sister, did you grow up in a very Catholic family?
Cradle Catholic, although I must confess, we weren't particularly well catechized. So I went to Catholic school for 10 years, but I actually didn't know about the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist.
Oh, Sister.
Not until I was an adult.
I am sure so many of our audience are connecting with you right now and going, and how did you learn it? And what did you do, and how was God so merciful, and how did you end up saying yes to His graces as they came into your life?
He is so patient and so merciful because, honestly, Sister, through high school and college, I had pretty much fallen away from the faith. And after I graduated from college, I got this job that involved a lot of travel. And
where did you travel to, and what were you doing?
Mostly in the United States, Western Europe a few times for work.
Wow.
And so I was consulting. So for some of it, I was doing audits. And for some of it, I was going to hospitals. That was really fun. The hospitals were fun. We would go to hospitals and help them do things like reduce the time that it took for a patient to be seen in the emergency room.
Oh, how beautiful. Thank you so much, Sister. That's a very needy cause.
It was a lot of fun.
Everyone who is sick owes you a big thanks. So on behalf of all, thank you for being interested. Did you get that job right out of college?
Yes, Sister. I went to my dream college, dream program, dream job.
That's beautiful. You must have had pretty good grades to land such a good job.
I'm a good test taker.
And God is merciful and good to all of us.
He is. I was pursuing all of these worldly pursuits, and He used them ultimately to call him back to Himself.
How beautiful. How beautiful.
So,
and Sister, also as I am thinking about it, you have been an excellent librarian at the Mother House. I'm jumping ahead of your story a little bit here, but I can see how some of those skills are being used even as the librarian in our rapidly growing and very, to me, complicated because we have a good number of books.
30,000.
God's good. That's pretty amazing for
We're very
our
blessed.
young community to. Okay, so perhaps we can revisit that. I'm just noticing the organizational skills which will be necessary for both of these. So, Sister, you said that you quite quickly got tired of all the travels because they were taking you away from home and friendships, and
Yes.
or were they kind of running away from bigger questions perhaps inside you, or how would you phrase that?
Well, it's funny because I had wanted a job like this because I thought, oh, traveling is so exotic. But actually, it's quite lonely.
Talk about that a little bit. A lot of young people would think what you thought.
Yes. So you go and you're just working, and all you do is work, and your whole life is work to make money. And then I remember I received my first promotion pretty quickly after starting to work. And I remember getting this promotion and thinking, oh, I was so disappointed because that's it,
Wow.
So I had everything I wanted and it wasn't enough.
Beautiful. So at what point in your life did you begin thinking perhaps a religious vocation? Because I know your parents very well, and I know your mom's desire for many grandchildren, which is a very healthy desire for any grandparents or grandparents to be. So how did all that end up going?
Well, I really owe my vocation to my sister. My mother blames her.
Beautiful. So we thank her. Okay.
So I was visiting her, and she had recently been married. And so she'd started nagging me about dating. I had dated very seriously and come quite close to marriage, but we discerned that it wasn't God's will for us to marry each other. So I was visiting my sister, and she starts, my sister is the oldest in the family.
Yes.
And so she started nagging me about dating. You need to put yourself out there. You need to join singles groups and all of these things. And I said, oh, that does not sound fun. And she says, well, I just don't know if you know you're called to marriage, why you aren't doing something about it.
Wow.
And I said, well, I don't know that I'm called to marriage. I haven't ruled out religious life. I haven't blah, 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 blah. And she says, wait, you haven't ruled out religious life? We'll fix that. And so she signed me up for a retreat.
You are kidding. See, the necessity for the big sisters and big brothers to get into the action and help the younger ones out. That's a good lesson.
It's true.
How beautiful for her to be so proactive in your own life to find out why God created you and what was.
True.
She was beautiful.
It's true. She said she could tell I was restless. And I would still be floundering there if it weren't for her.
Well, I am sure, Sister, that when she is in this audience, she is going to be just, extolling your praises as you are hers. But how beautiful that families work together for each sibling to find God's will. So, Sister, what happened when you came on the retreat?
Well, I came on retreat. Well, at first I was kind of going to cross it off the list and check it off and say, no, thank you. Looked into that and I'll keep going with whatever I was doing. But I got here and everything just resonated. Everything just, it's as if my heart were vibrating on a certain frequency that I didn't even know. And then I got here and it was the same.
Oh, how beautiful. So you made one of our vocation discernment retreats.
Well, first I did a diocesan retreat,
Okay.
and then a friend told me about these retreats.
Oh, how beautiful. Because we do have a number in our community already from your Diocese of Houston, Texas. In fact, a good number.
Yes.
So I would think that there was some talk going on there about make one of the Dominican Sisters of Mary vocational discernment retreats, which we have mentioned, Sister, a number of times on these series, The Truth Shall Set You Free, because it's so important, whatever your vocation is, now we know what it is, but what was in God's plan, that you would have been open. So you came to discern, but also not that distant from a very beautiful relationship with a man that in another life you might have married. So after you came and you made the retreat, then tell us how this unfolded in your life.
Well, I should step back a little bit. So before I made this retreat, at first, of course, when you're discerning your vocation, you pray a lot. And at first, for the first several months, my prayer was, "Thy will be done, but please don't ask me to do this."
Religious life?
Yes, sister. And then one day I was in Eucharistic adoration, and I looked at him, and it occurred to me, I am so in love with you. It would be an honor to be your bride if you'll have me. And so really that's when things changed. And at that point, then I was open enough for my friend to suggest our community.
Oh, how beautiful.
So then after that, I asked for papers from you and Mother, application papers, and came on pre-postulancy week and was finally accepted. And 9 days before entrance day, I was driving in a car alone, and I got into a single car accident. And that set me back 2 years.
It did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I very well remember because you were pretty quickly you were in surgery. Yes. And had a lot of therapy.
Yes.
And what were you listening to when the accident occurred?
Honestly, I don't remember what I was listening to, but I remember when I started losing control of the car, I started talking to Jesus. I started praying, and I was talking to him in the Holy Spirit, and I said, well, I'm supposed to enter the convent next week, so you're just going to take this car wherever you want it to go.
Because you had lost control.
Yes. And then after the initial impact, and I looked down, and I saw there was a lot of trauma. I could tell. I looked at my leg, and I said, that's going to take at least 8 months of physical therapy. And so I thought, okay, you're telling me no convent next week. Possibly never. That's fine. I'll just await your instruction.
Wow. What deep faith, really.
Sister, it was a grace. It was such a grace. And he was with me the whole time. And, I never would have asked for an experience like that. I never would have asked for that kind of physical pain. But I knew I was near the cross. And that was all that mattered. And it was so intimate, sister. It was just a really beautiful time. And people were so good to me and my family. And we received so many prayers. And I can't begin to count all the graces.
Sister, I remember the emails I would receive from you and the phone calls from your sister and your mother. Yes. And really watching during those 2 years of waiting to do God's will. Because this too was part of it, yes. But to be able to fulfill it in entering the convent, obviously, which you were supposed to do the next week before this happened. But I would have to honestly say, I saw you grow so much and believed in you more than I ever had before. Not that I had difficulty before, but I knew that you had a pretty strong worldly experience and worldly vision of things. And I thought, is she really ready? But
clearly not.
There was nothing that shouted out at me until, obviously, God intervened or your lack of control of the car intervened, however we would want to express this. But, of course, we believe in God's providence in all things. And the growth was so beautiful, as well as I would certainly say in your mother's acceptance of your religious vocation, because for a while I think she feared for your life.
Yes, I shouldn't have survived that accident.
Exactly. So you are a miracle.
I was actually kind of excited to. I was thinking when it happened, when the car started flipping, I thought, oh, people don't always survive this, Lord.
Oh my
and then I thought, okay, well, I went to Mass last night, and confession the night before. And so I was thinking, okay, purgatory, here I come. I may see him eventually. So I started getting excited. So it's actually a little bit disappointed.
That's a beautiful act of faith. That's extraordinary, really. You really had that depth. But I would also have to say, we're very grateful to God that He said, oh, no, this was just a bump in your road. You've got a lot more ahead of you. So, Sister, I remember there's another sister in our community of Asian background, that also entered with you. And so that interests me because we are getting all different kinds of backgrounds in the young women who are entering. And I love it because the church is universal. To be Catholic is to be universal, as we know the word means that. So therefore, was it more difficult to enter a community that did not at that point in time have as many Asians, or did you just not think a thing about it, or?
No, it was already home from the beginning.
Because
when you have the faith, we just had Christ, and that's all we need. We don't necessarily need similarly cultural experiences. And actually, I learn a lot from my sisters with different backgrounds.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, I must confess, having another Filipino sister enter with me has been a great grace for my mother.
That's true. Go ahead and explain that to our audience.
So our mothers have become very, very good friends. They talk on the phone for maybe like 3.5 hours at a time. They call each other sister. They planned vacations together. So far, it hasn't happened yet, but but it may one day.
I could see it happening someday, and it's fun to dream about whether or not it actually does.
It's
and
true.
I can see both your moms making these great plans. And another thing that I really do want to say with your mom as well as Sister's mom, and perhaps this is Asian or perhaps this is Filipino, but the level of generosity is amazing to me. So, like your parents, before they come to visit you at the mother house, they will go by Sam's Club or Costco or wherever they can and buy out all the roasted chickens or the peanuts or whatever it is that they have picked up that any of us like. So I will get my nuts and somebody else will get her dates or whatever. And the whole community will just have such an abundance. And they bring extra suitcases to fill them up, and then they get boxes. And I'm like, is that not beautiful? Whether or not that's typical of the Filipinos, perhaps it is. I find it very interesting, Sister, as we are speaking today, that the new Master General of the Dominican Order, 800 years, and he is the first Asian, and he is from the Philippines. So I'm going to be watching him like a hawk to see if he has that kind of generosity and big-heartedness and really the depth of faith that I have certainly seen in you. What were your thoughts when you first heard that the Master General is Filipino now?
I was so excited. He was assigned for a long time at my mother's alma mater.
You're kidding.
No, the University of St. Thomas.
Yes.
It is
in the Philippines.
In the Philippines, in Manila. It is, I think it's the only pontifical university in Asia. It's older than any colleges here in the U.S. And actually, when St. Thomas was out of favor, it was the University of St. Thomas in Manila that preserved the scholastic tradition.
Sister, I know that at the beginning of our community, some theology books that we really love, Spiritual Theology by Father Jordan Alman, OP, were out of print everywhere except there.
That's right.
And so I wrote them and said, how much will it cost to buy the books and get them shipped to the USA to Ann Arbor, Michigan? And we got a very good deal. And that was thanks to the University of St. Thomas, named after St. Thomas Aquinas.
That's right.
Right there in the Philippines. How did you first hear that the Master General is Filipino?
Actually, I heard it at breakfast.
Oh, good, because?
Because every morning you read us a little snippet of the news, and that happened to be one of the articles.
And so I expected you to jump out of your seat.
It took a lot of self-control not to do so.
You and Sister Anthony Maria are other Filipino. And I thought, can you imagine hearing that the Master General, 800 years, has never been Asian, and here he comes. He has a wonderful face, and I can't wait to meet him someday. And I loved how he highlighted the preaching of the order, because we are the order of preachers. So behind all of our names is O period, P period, meaning order of preachers, because the Holy Father called us that. He didn't say, oh, you're going to be the followers of Dominic. He certainly didn't say you're going to be the Dominicans, which is what the order has become known as through these 800 years, certainly as the Franciscans after Francis, or the Jesuits after the Society of Jesus. But we're known for our founder, St. Dominic, quite obviously, but behind our initials is our marching orders, that we are the order of preachers. So get out there, preach and teach to everyone that you can, which again is why we have this whole video series, as well as the others on Go LA Digital. And the truth does set us free, because the truth is the Dominican motto. How has that played out in your life, Sister?
Well, when I did fall away from the church, part of it, I think, was because I just didn't really know the truths of the faith. And once they were introduced to me, I couldn't get enough. and ultimately, I fell in love with truth himself.
Sister, that is so beautifully expressed. You are very good.
Oh, thank you.
And to say that everyone has that desire for God, if we just have the courage, those of us who know him and love him by his, again, goodness and mercy to us, and our own acceptance and free will. So those of us that are just radically in love with Jesus and live it and speak it, others will be there to listen and to follow. You know, as St. Paul says, how am I to know if there is not ultimately a preacher to tell me? Which is why, again, we're spread across the globe. So, Sister, have a beautiful year in Rome. I know you have got to be excited about this obedience. This was an easy one to accept. Some of them are a little bit more trying, but we know it's God's will. And so there's going to be great joy and peace in the midst of it all. But yours wasn't too difficult to accept.
I still can't believe it.
Are you good with languages?
Pretty good. Although I am a little bit worried that I'm fluent in Spanish, and so I'm a little worried I'll confuse the two.
Sister, that's true. The two are close, but you're very bright. You'll be able to make those. And I think sometimes if you try your Spanish, maybe the Italians are merciful enough to say, we know what you're trying.
I'm sure I can understand Italian because of the Spanish.
That's beautiful. And your obedience in going to Rome is because you will?
I'll be the librarian at the Pontifical North American College.
Isn't that beautiful? All those wonderful young priests will have you as their spiritual mom, along with the Blessed Mother, and I'm sure others over there as well. But you will be helping them. So again, the library just kind of feeds into the way God prepared you and your own gifts and talents, which certainly are abundant. So Sister Mary Aquinas, interesting name. Sister Mary Aquinas, thank you so very much for coming and being with us today. And for all the audience, let's pray for Sister and for all the sisters that you are meeting and coming to know on this beautiful series, The Truth Shall Set You Free. God bless. Thank you.
So if you like the material on this particular podcast, then please click on the next podcast for another fascinating story.